Hi, good day people. Welcome to the lecture series of mine. So this is not a live class, this is only a recorded video. Since one of the classes when I was taking a lecture, it just got disconnected. So I missed the recording. So again I am redoing it for my convenience of my students. So today we will be seeing about study design and research design. Last week we discussed about research design in a kind of nutshell. So now we will be elaborating these both. So study design is about it's a planned systematic way of doing your research. Like the definition says, it's a part of research design. It is a design of study whereby all analyzing elements are planned for a better research. So we have to have the right approach to continue your research. Research design is a process. So in study design we have got like three important aspects: by contact, and then by reference period, and then by nature of investigation. This is what we are going to see predominantly in this particular video. So in context we have got cross-sectional studies, longitudinal studies, and before and after studies. So if you can just observe this particular slide, you will be able to understand these are like the approaches and the methods how the research is being carried. It is not a research method, but how it is being carried. It's a very important. What research am I doing? Am I going to take entire population of mine? Am I going to ask the interview to all the people as my respondents? So I should know the methods. I should know the process to be done. So this is the kind of when we divide into three aspects, we have got by contact, reference period, and by nature of investigation. First is on contact. In contact we have got like cross-sectional studies. Here as a researcher I interview and I take the questionnaire. I just supply my instruments to all the respondents without discrimination, without any bias, irrespective of male, female, gender, income class. I just take everybody. It's a cross-sectional. The example given here is the occurrence of HIV case in Australia. So if I have to study about HIV cases, there is no point me studying only about the male. I have to study about the male and female. So I don't have any kind of a discrimination here. There is no any kind of niche market where I should really focus upon. Cross-sectional is unanimous for the entire. It is called one-shot studies, or like customer satisfaction study. If I am doing a customer satisfaction study, I cannot just take only children. I cannot take only adults. I have to be a mix of everyone. So this is called cross-sectional. As the name indicates, it is cross-sectional. Everyone can be involved in my study. And then we come to before and after studies. So this is a kind of an research where I do data collection before, and then I do again after one point of time, if after I do indulge in particular activity. Assuming this example, impact of increased funding and quality of teaching. What has been said here is, once as a teacher, once somebody is being given funding, how is his performance? What was his performance before funding? So I do a research before and after. I would like to know what was his performance before he got the funding, and at the same time after he got the funding, how was it? How is the differentiation? What is the transformation? So I do a kind of a study it's called before and after studies. The second example, effect of advertisement on a sale of a product. So there is a product. Before advertisement, how was the sales, and after advertisement, how was the sales? So this is called like before and after studies. But here please be careful, there is something called Hawthorne effect. Hawthorne effect means that is you ask your respondent once, they will respond to you. You may ask second time, they might be okay, but third time they will start hesitating, fourth time they will ignore, fifth time they will get scared of you. So every time we ask the same question again and again, there is an Hawthorne effect. The answers could not be very genuine. So this is called Hawthorne effect. So please be careful, because you ask a same person again and again the same kind of a question, the second time the honesty might not be there. So this is an issue with before and after studies, but we have no choice. We have to undergo if your thesis deserves it. The third one is longitudinal studies. Longitudinal means like I do continuously, consistently. I would like to know the trend. The example given here is ascertain the trends of demand of labor in Malaysia. In Malaysia, people say that we have got certain kind of jobs where they recruit foreigners. So I want to know how is Malaysia recruiting foreign students, foreign employees, foreign laborers. So here, what happened in 2016, what happened 2017, what happened 2018, what happened 2019, what happened 2020. So for the 5 years I am doing a study. So I am trying to ascertain the trend, how the labor recruitment policies in immigration is happening in Malaysia. It's consistent. I'm not doing for 1 year, I'm doing for 5 years. So it's called longitudinal. The second example given here is impact of immigration policies in Malaysia in 2015. So if I have to comment about 2015 immigration policies, I should know about 2014, 2013 and also 2016. So the pre and post very important. So only if I knew this and I can do a research on this topic. So it's consistently doing this called longitudinal studies. So these are all comes under contacts. Now we have got reference period. The design by reference period is we have got retrospective, prospective, retrospective, prospective. The names are very easy to understand these things. Retrospective means like, you know, we do an historical study. I do a research about the old timing of olden days. The example, utilization of land before World War II in Western Europe. Historical analysis of migratory movements in Eastern Europe between 1950 and 1945. So these are nothing to do with 2020. These are all like olden days research. So I do a study based on my findings already has been existing. So here this is something called basic research. If you have seen my first video, I have explained you about what is called basic research. Basic research means it is a research where I do to expand my knowledge. Applied research means which I can make it applicable in my existing present current affairs. So these are like historical studies where I am trying to expand my knowledge. Retrospective. Next we have prospective. It's a futuristic study. The example is to determine the impact of random breath testing on road prevention of road accidents. So I am trying to determine the impact of random breath testing on prevention of road accidents. It's futuristic. I am not studying about the historical one. If I bring this random testing, how will be the road accident? I am doing an impact. That's a research impact. So this is called prospective, about the future. The second example, to establish effects on counseling service and career guidance. So after I counsel, how is the kind of a career guidance impact has been there. So everything is very prospective. I am doing futuristic. That's called prospective. Now the third one is quite interesting, retrospective, prospective. That is, we do a research based on history to give a proper future. I again repeat, we do a research on historical facts to make futuristic policies. Now this example, this is something which I have done, this is my research papers topic. I was doing a research about, trying to understand the olden days economic policies to suggest a new economic policy. So study of economic concepts from ancient epics for better economic development. So it's retrospective for prospective. So these are all the reference period. The last one we have got is about nature of investigation. Investigations, like we have got experimental, non-experimental and semi-experimental. If you see experimental research, it is studied to establish a cause. Okay, we are trying to establish an effect. So we would like to know what is the cause of it. The example, factors determining the influence of customer satisfaction. So from the cause, I understand the effect. Okay, so I'll again repeat, determining the influence of customer satisfaction. What makes a person to be satisfied? Okay, is it because of the ambience in my shop? Is it because of the quality of my product? It is because of the service delivery. So what makes a person to be satisfied? Is it because of post sales? There are many aspects. I cannot confine all these things with one element. So now I am doing a research, what makes a person to be satisfied. So I am trying to find the effect, the cause and effect of it, the cause and through the effect. The next one, non-experimental, is we are trying to trace the effect from the cause. The last we saw cause to effect, but here we are trying to find the effect from the cause. The example is investigation on effects of corruption in Singapore. There is corruption. Okay, so what is the effects of this corruption? So we are trying to find the effects of the corruption, means we are going in reverse direction. So please don't take my examples as no offense over here. We are not trying to say Singapore has got high corruption. Singapore is one of the country where there is no corruption. Maybe in top 20 there has been there. So I'm just, for example, for the sake of explaining, I'm using the word called Singapore, the country called Singapore. So this is we go from effects to trace the cause. We would like to know what is the cause of it. This is called non-experimental. Then we have got semi-experimental. Here it's a combination of both. We are trying to find both the cause and the effect of it. The example, to identify the cause and outcome of illegal trade practices such as gambling, smuggling, prostitution, human trafficking. So we are trying to know what is the cause of these problems and what is the effect of this problem. This is called semi-experimental. So now you have seen all these study designs. So you cannot question, like you cannot decide and then, sir, I'm going to do only on cross sectional, I'm going to do on experimental, I'm going to do on, you cannot decide now. It depends upon your research problem statement, it depends upon your literature review, it depends upon data collection. Only you come to that stage, you will be knowing what kind of study you're doing. So you can just prepare yourself to know all these things at this point of time. Once you come to data collection, then you will understand, okay, this research is going to be like retrospective, prospective. So do not confine yourself with, I'm going to do this experimental, I'm going to start on. All these things can be applicable, or one or two can be applicable. It depends upon your research. So there is no any solid answer. If you're going to ask me like which is better, what I'm supposed to do, all these things are fine, all these things are legitimate, nothing has been wrong over here. So you cannot discount any of these things, all have been accepted. But it depends upon your research, which one you are choosing. Only after you know your data collection process, you will understand this. Now, this is all about study design. After study design, we have something called research design, which we have seen in the last particular video. We have discussed the basics of research design. So now we'll go and elaborate. So now it's similar to study design in terms of understanding, but it differs from research platform. So it refers to the plan, structure, strategy of research, the blueprint that will guide the research process. It's something called research process. So we will be seeing now the research process. So I always tell to my students, do not worry for the result if your process is in having excellence. So if your process is excellent, your result will be excellent. So do not really worry for your recommendation and how your research is going to be having an outcome. If your process is clear, if it is diligent, if it is meticulously done, your outcome should be really great. So we will focus on the process, that is the steps in research. Probably if you can concentrate on this next 5 minutes to understand this research process, you are done with methodologies in basics. You know, like this is not advanced research methodology topics, it's only a research methodology topic. To go in advanced, you should know each and every process in detail. The basic thing is, if you can understand this, you can call yourself as a person who knew methodology. So to start with, the first research process, we start with a problem statement. So problem statement is, a research should have a problem statement. Without a problem statement, you cannot carry your research. If there is no problem statement in your research, it means that you have got a very big problem in your research. Okay, so please make sure that you have a right solid problem statement. A problem statement should define the effects of the problem. Do not say the cause of the problem, because we believe you, because you're doing your PhD, we believe there is something, a problem in your topic, whatever you take. So do not come and say there is a problem in online shopping, there is a problem in governance. No, effects of the problem, that is because of the lack of corporate governance, what is the effect? Because of lack of trust on faith on this online shopping, what is the effect of it? So effects is what you are supposed to describe in a problem statement. It comes in chapter 1. Then we go to the research objectives. Objectives means is to say about your aims and then your goals. Your objectives can be 5 or 6 or 10, it's up to your research. So there is no any thumb rule which says only 3 objectives or 2 objectives. It is like to start with to understand, to comprehend, to determine, like to analyze, to critically evaluate. So you should put a proper action term and then put your clear objective. It should be in a point wise, your research objectives. Then from research objectives, we develop our research questions. That is, if my objective is to go to Malaysia, then my question is how to go to Malaysia. So simple. So questions and objective, both RO and RQ should have a synchronization. It can't be differing. So that is together. So after your objectives, you can have RQ, there is a research question. There is a school of thought which says RQ then RO. So I am not coming to the debate which comes first. It's like coming like chicken or egg. So do not go into the contemplation what is first. I am saying go by RO. You can probably start by RQ, because I have got a reason why to start with research objective. Only from objective I can develop a question. But there are some intelligent people who can develop a question from an objective, objective from a question. So it's vice versa. But you can probably follow what has been given here, like objectives, then develop your questions. Then from questions we can go to the literature review. Literature review is about studying your journals, about academic books in your area. So the more you study in your literature in your area, you become more skilled and more strengthened in your proposals and then your research. So literature review is one of the significant part. Some people do literature review beginning of the research, that is before problem statement they do it. It is still accepted. But coming in a protocol, we do literature review once we identify the problem. So once I know the problem, once I fix my questions, then I go back to my books in my area, and then I start analyzing it out. Literature review. Then we got like theoretical framework. Theoretical framework is a framework constructed by a theorist or a scholar. It is not from me, it is from a scholar. So I take a particular theory. From the theory, I design the framework. Not I means it's not me, I am just trying to get the framework from the theory. It is not done by me, it is done by a scholar. Let's say if I am taking something called theory X, it is being told by a particular person called William. So he has told about theory X. From there, I am determining this particular framework. So theoretical framework is not from me, it is from the scholar. But what is from me is like conceptual framework. Conceptual framework has been completely designed by the researcher of a particular research with combination of variables, constructs, and then there's a path model between them. So the framework is your model, it is your architecture of your entire research. If you go to the Western universities or Western sort of countries, they don't have conceptual framework, they go directly to hypothesis. So it is neither right or wrong, so do not take it like framework is really must. It is, if it is there, it's going to ease you. It's a process, it's in a ladder, it's one of the step. So if you can think you can jump a double step without a one step, it's up to you. So framework, if it is there, it is very healthy, it's going to be helpful. But in some countries, because this video, if it's for Limpopo University students, yes, we have to adopt conceptual framework for sure, because that is very important what we see in Malaysia. But for other students who are looking to it, do not really be concerned. You can go to literature review, you can go directly to hypothesis. So it's up to you to have it out, because this is what, if you can see the research PhD books or PhD thesis books in Harvard or like Stanford, if you can go and look into Oxford University thesis, there is no framework. I was surprised. So they go direct to hypothesis. But if you have framework, it's easy for you, because you have something called framework, you have variables. So then you can make your plan, and then you can start building your entire research. So this one is about hypothesis. Hypothesis is all about your, it's a hunch. It's a kind of hunch statement where you keep in a kind of assumption is the right word, but do not think it's only an assumption. Hypothesis is like, if you know the exact meaning of hypothesis, you have an hypothesis that this statement can be positive or negative. So now you can understand it's a kind of a doubt. I'm not very sure. So I should not call this an assumption, but assumption is a word which you can make it to understand in a very simple language. It's a hunch. So we develop hypothesis. Our entire goal is to prove the hypothesis in a thesis, whether it is positive or negative. So after hypothesis, we come to a research instrument, that is a data collection. Data collection is like, should you go for developing your questionnaire, or you're going to go through interview or focus group, or like observation or informal interviews. There are several kind of data collection methods. So you should now make your instrument ready for it and do all the testing, do your pre-testing, post-testing, pilot testing, check the instrument validity. All these things you should be done in this, should be getting done in this particular stage. Then we go data collection. Data collection is we go to this field, we do a direct face-to-face data collection with our respondents. You can also do in online, but do not have the entire research in online. It is not valid, because sometimes that's a tangibility error you might have. That is, you go to a research field and then you start taking your respondents, your interviews from them, or you take the information from them. There is a lot of learning. So if you do entirely with your online, you might really miss that opportunity. So have like mixture of online, also face to face. If you're doing like qualitative, absolutely you're supposed to have face to face, that you have to be lying. You cannot do entirely by email or by telecalls. That's not accepted. Do it face to face. That is data collection. Then data collection, then you come back to analysis part. This is where we use our analytical tools like SPSS or like SmartPLS, like AMOS, Atlas TI. You have got many softwares. You can also use the software which you're comfortable with. At the end of the day, we need certain important points like reliability, R-square, p-value. These are some important points which you will be tested. If you're having a mediator in your conceptual framework, you will be asked all about the structural equation modeling. So you should be able to defend about your model fit analysis, whether the model has been fit, and then your CFA and EFA, all these comes under data analysis part. This is a statistical part of your entire methodology. Then after analysis, we derive a result. Results are basically numericals. For example, your reliability Cronbach alpha, if it is above 0.06, it's been accepted. So these are all numerical values we see in results. From results we get our findings. So what do you understand? What did you find? The particular variable has been having a very good reliable factor compared to other construct. So this is what you find. So you can, all findings are with synchronized with the results. It is not your recommendation, it is not your contribution, it is only the findings from the results. Then after findings we come to contribution. Contribution is like you have got two kind of contribution, your theoretical contribution and then your practical contribution. Theoretical contribution means it is what you give to the body of knowledge. Excuse me. So what do you give to your body of knowledge? Okay, what do you submit to the body of knowledge? That is, you might have made a new model, you might have made a new theory, given a new kind of a theory. This all comes under theoretical contribution. Practical contribution is nothing but it is all about what do you give to your society and then what you give to your people. That is your society and then your corporate and then you give to your government, all comes under practical contribution. This also has something called recommendations as well. So then after that we have got something called philosophy. You have been given Doctor of Philosophy. So Doctor of Philosophy is all about, you know, submission of your right philosophy. In philosophy, it's a very big ocean. Philosophy, you have got like pragmatism and then interpretivism, positivism, realism, based on ontology and epistemology. There is a very big studies on it. Maybe in my future videos you will be learning about philosophy. Philosophy is very important. I feel very bad when my students skip the philosophy part. They just put recommendations and conclusion. That's not the right way. You have been given an award called Doctor of Philosophy. So philosophy should be given a role of importance here. So philosophy is something which is, maybe at this point of time you can understand it's called a moral of a study. Moral. What am I doing in this research? What am I going to tell you over here? So this is what you should understand now. But there are many kind of philosophies. What philosophy is your research we will be knowing only after you complete your data collection and analysis part. So you please understand this point of time, philosophy is where you end your research. So you start your research by research problem and then you end by philosophy. Now this is called the research process. If you are aware about all these elements, if you think that you know all these elements, you can call yourself as a person who understands methodology. That's it. But if you have to go in detail is where you can master the skills. This is where you can go for a very good defense only if you master each and everything else. For example, like in your research instrument, there are plenty of things inside. You have got like many kind of instruments. You have to do in instrumentation itself, you have to see about your Likert scale. There are something called Guttman Likert scale. There are many kind of Likert scales, many kind of scales in your instrument. And then about literature review, again it's an ocean. Coming to your data analysis, it's an again ocean. So you go more into it is where you can call yourself that you have done your advanced research methodology. So each and every aspect, every element here has got a lot of in details. But if you can understand in top of the ocean, you can call yourself that you knew methodology. Now the key important stages which you are not affordable to miss is your research problem, research questions, literature review, conceptual framework, research instrument, data collection and data analysis, and finally philosophy. If you notice hypothesis I have skipped here. The reason being hypothesis is also very important. The reason why I have not given importance is people who are doing qualitative, they might not have hypothesis. So coming to the in this section I really have to skip it out, but hypothesis is very mandatory. But if you are doing qualitative, there is no need to have hypothesis because you observe, there is no any doubts you have got. You can ask all these questions directly to then interview you can get it sorted out. And then these are the important key stages. So please make sure you focus on these important steps in the research. And your chapters are divided again in these things like research problem is discussed in detail with the background, objectives, questions in chapter 1. Then chapter 2 is entirely literature review where you quote a lot of citations. There are many in-text citations are happening. That's literature review. Then finally we have got third chapter 3 we have got like data collection. We will explain about the research paradigm. Okay, and then we are going to say about what sort of sampling technique we are going to use and then what is our real methodology, all in data collection. That is in chapter 3. Then chapter 4 you will discuss about the numerical statistical elements. If you are doing qualitative, you are going to discuss about thematical or phenomenological research analysis. This all comes in chapter 4. Then final chapter is all about philosophy. You have got to discuss. This is the only chapter where you can put your discussion. The rest chapters you cannot put your opinion. All chapter 1, 2, 3 and 4 is nothing from you. It's only like a research aspect. But in chapter 5 is completely you can put your discussion. You can discuss. It means that you can put your opinions as well. This is the only place where you can share your views. So this is a place where you can put your recommendation. Recommendations are based from the research, not your opinion again. So all these things comes in chapter 5. So these are called the entire chapters in a research for a PhD. If your university prescribes to have like 6 or 7 chapters, up to you. But in Lim Kok Wing University we have only 5 chapters. So we go by 5 particular stages of thesis. In a nutshell, this is a flow chart. So we start with the research problem, there is a literature review, then we go for methodology, then we analyze, then we see whether this is acceptable or not, then we go for the discussion of, and then finally we do a conclusion recommendation. This is a very simplistic of your research process. So with this we'll stop it here. So okay, lastly we have got something, some few maybe a tips for the successful research design. Have a very bright idea, have a well developed and a clearly described methods. Methods means your which method, are you doing quanti, quali, or your mixed method, or your study design, your research design. Have a very clear understanding about these methods, and then perform your proper data analysis, appropriate data analysis. If you're not a person who knew statistics, do not worry. Please at least learn to the extent how much you can defend and how much you can prove your hypothesis. That's enough, because you're not being given doctor of analysis, you're given doctor of philosophy. So I would not recommend you to go completely into it, but it's very important. You cannot skip it. It's not affordable to completely ignore analysis part. You're supposed to learn at statistics for sure, but if you're not comfortable with statistics, at least learn to know how to prove your hypothesis. There is a process has been there, you can understand that. Then source large sample size that helps you for accuracy. Go by the particular sampling formula. Do not take as you like. Since you like 300, don't take 300. You have to take a formula to derive a sample size, but take it more. Anything above 150 is accepted in PhD studies. Less than 150 is not being accepted because it becomes an assignment. You cannot do and come to a conclusion by 150 sample size. Maybe if you are a news reporter, it is fine, but if you are doing academic research, you hold a responsibility. So take large sample size, that is anything above 150 is fine. Go by a sample size calculator, go by a formula. Take plenty of time to do the work. Obviously it's a 3 years PhD, some universities having 5 years. So take enough time to do your PhD. Have limitations as much as less, that is have less limitations. So generate a clear pathway for a strong conclusion. So these are like some basic tips for you to have a proper research design. So this is where I end up. I am just making it very short because I was having like 45 slides, easily explained the last 30 minutes I think. So it is just for your convenience I am doing this particular video because there are no students over here. So any kind of doubts you can always like email me if you are my student. Thanks for listening. Anything else, please text me out, we'll take it forward then. Thank you all.